What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the LOJO Fishing fam? You may or may not be able to hear my voice, but I'm a sick little boy today, but that's okay. We're gonna push through the sickness and try to make a entertaining video for you guys. And I'm also gonna be trying to answer one of the most commonly asked questions of me from you guys on this channel. And that question is, what type of line, fishing line, is my favorite? You know, what type, what pound test, you know, what is the best for bass fishing? And really, it's incredibly hard to answer that question, but I'm going to do my best in today's video. And it's gonna be especially relevant today because if you guys remember in a couple videos I did, a couple videos back, I have a surplus of rods and reels right now that are completely empty, don't have any line on them at all, because I've just, you know, I mean, how do you spool up this many rods and reels? I mean, you're gonna have to sit back, take your time, figure out what kind of line, what kind of fishing you're gonna be doing with each one, and go from there. So if you are one of those people who have been wondering to yourself, you know, what kind of fishing line is best, what kind of fishing line is best for this situation, or what my favorite is, what I use the most often, I'm gonna do my best to answer that today as we go shopping for line, because I need about 15 rod and reels worth of fishing line. So we're gonna have to go see if we can make that happen. Guys, now one question that I can answer right here, right now, when people say what is the best fishing line for bass fishing, that cannot be answered, okay? Because that is completely up to your opinion. There are so many factors at play. What kind of lure are you throwing? Where are you in the country? I guarantee you, somebody that's fishing in Florida and somebody fishing in New York State are not throwing the exact same type of fishing line. It's just not, that's not how it works, you know? What kind of species are you targeting? Are you after largemouth, smallmouth, hybrids, stripers? All that stuff matters. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna hop up in Academy, which is right behind me somewhere. Oh God, the sun's right in my eye. We're going to dive into the different types of fishing lines, braid, mono, fluoro, what I use each one for, my favorite brands of each one, and finally what my favorite line is and what I use the most often. Let's get in here. Here we go, the holy grail of fishing line. That's why I like Academy as opposed to like Dick's or Walmart, is that they have, to me, clearly the biggest selection of fishing line, brands, types, and everything else. I think I'm gonna start with my least used line, and it's really just because it's winter time, but my least used line right now is braid. We got a nice section of braid right here. I mean, we've got Power Pro, we've got Spider Wire, we've got the Daiwa brand, the J Braid, we've got Suffix, we've got everything. So my favorite brands of braid, I do love Power Pro, and especially this one right here, the Super Slick. It's the quietest one in your line guides, and you guys know if you've ever used heavy braid, some of those sound like a saw, you know, going through your line guides. But the Super Slick is very nice, but the problem is it's very expensive as opposed to like a regular braid. I've used Spider Wire before, thought it was okay. I've used the Daiwa J Braid before, I thought that was okay too. Now the Suffix is another one that I really do like, but once again, you know, the price point, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive. So it just kind of depends on what your budget is, how much you're willing to spend, you know, how much are you gonna use this braid. If you're gonna use a lot, you may wanna step it up and actually buy something really good. Here we go, some catfishing braided line. A lot of you catfishermen out there probably could tell me if this stuff's any good or not. I have no idea. Guys, if I'm using braid, I'm using it pretty much either for one of two different situations. Either one, I'm throwing a topwater lure of some kind. Buzz bait, maybe a whopper plopper sometimes, a topwater frog. I mean, it's hard to throw a topwater frog on anything except braid because you need that braid to float on top of the water, and you also need the zero stretch that braid has. So when you go to set the hook, you just slam the hooks in that bass's mouth. The other thing I like to use braid for is flipping in heavy cover. And once again, if you're not in Florida right now, you're probably not flipping anywhere near heavy cover because you guys probably don't have any heavy cover. But when you flip into heavy cover, you're gonna be flipping a really heavy tungsten weight up to like 2 ounces, which is gonna require very heavy line. Also, when you hook into a fish in heavy cover like lily pads, grass, a grass mat, stuff like that, you're gonna have to yank that bass out of there. And if it's a good sized bass, you're putting all the strain on your line, you got to have something heavy. So that's where braided line comes in. The non-stretch, the extra strength, the poundage of it are designed for specific things. So as far as like how heavy I like to go, well, with a topwater buzzbait, with something like that, or even a frog, to me 30 pounds is kind of right where you want to be. It's not too heavy, like 50 pounds, and it's not too light, like 15 pounds. So that's probably gonna be a top water type, moving top water braid right there. Let's get one of these. Let's get one of something else. I think I'll go with some Suffix 30 pound for the other one. Just cool packaging too. It's like mesmerizing. As far as color, guys, you can see we don't get too far from aqua green or like a moss green or just a dark green color, you know. You could go with black too if you can find it. It's kind of hard to find in stores where I live, but yeah, so there you go. Now for flipping, it's going to be the exact opposite. For flipping, you want to go heavy because, like I said, the situation you're going to be in, you're going to need some heavy lines. So we're going to go with 50 pound super slick for the flipping type stuff. The next two type of lines, guys, are mono and fluoro, and believe it or not, I actually interchange them quite a bit with different rigs, lures, and setups that I use. I like to use both of them for specific situations. Let's start with fluoro. So guys, there's two main differences between fluoro and mono. Okay, the one difference is fluoro has a lot less stretch, meaning fluoro is a lot more similar to braid in the fact that when you swing and set the hook, the line does not stretch very much, whereas mono has a ton of stretch. And you might be saying, why do you want a line that stretches? Well, there's actually a reason why that line stretches, and it's a good thing, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Guys, when I think fluorocarbon, I'm thinking Texas rig, crankbait, spinnerbait, chatterbait. You know, a lot of rigs are going to be tied onto fluorocarbon. Size range, I could go all the way down to 10 pounds if I'm doing something really light, if I'm throwing a really light lure, or if the fish are just not biting at all. And I'll go all the way up to 20-pound line if I'm like in Florida, or if I'm fishing around heavy grass and stuff like that, heavy cover, where if I get snagged, I could still rip my lure out of there. So we're going to range all the way up and down the size chart when it comes to fluorocarbon. I started off throwing the P-line fluorocarbon, but I've kind of moved away from that. I don't know why. I just kind of stopped using it. I just wasn't a big fan anymore. Now the one that's right next to it, the Berkley Vanish, this has been one of my favorite. And 12-pound line is one of those lines. It's a little light for me, but I use a lot of different things with that, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of those. Yeah, Vanish, this stuff is legit. I'll tell you one of my favorite budget fishing fluorocarbons is the Vicious. I love this stuff. And 15 pound, now you've kind of gotten into the middle ground of where I like to be, between 12 and 17 pounds really. So let's get one of those. We're also gonna have to get some 20-pound fluorocarbon because some of the lures that we're gonna be throwing this year, like Alabama rigs or big swim baits, you've got to have that extra poundage on your line, but you still want fluorocarbon with some of those. So let's get one of those too. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with the Berkley Trilene. I've never really used it. Same with the Stren fluorocarbon. I like Stren for mono, and we'll get to that in a second, but I've never really used a Stren fluoro, so I'm really not sure. But you know, we haven't got a 17 pound yet. I like to have a 17 pound. It's heavy, but it's not quite as heavy as 20 pound. So let's get one of those too. We're gonna get a little bit more fluoro and mono than we do braid because we're using that more this time of year. Next up is mono, guys, and I keep things super simple with mono. I love Stren, it's my favorite. 14 pounds, 17 pounds. That's gonna get me through most situations with mono. So because of the stretch that mono has, let me explain a situation where you may want that stretch. So me, I love lipless crankbaits, especially when the water's cold. I'm actually a weird person. Most people throw lipless crankbaits on fluoro because fluoro sinks. There's no stretch to it, it's just a quality line. But see, I like to use mono with lipless crankbaits because with those treble hook baits, I find that the stretch kind of helps you secure that fish and not lose the fish. It's kind of hard for me to explain it because I'm not a professional angler. I don't want to sound stupid, but just trust me, having that stretch in certain situations with treble hook baits, I like it better. I feel like I catch more fish with mono in that situation than fluoro. Another thing about mono that is an advantage over fluoro is if you're using a topwater lure, but you don't want to use braid. So for example, a topwater spook, okay, a topwater walking bait of any kind, I prefer to use mono because it's stiffer than braid. If you've ever seen braid, when it lays down, it just folds over. It's really limp, whereas mono is very stiff. And so what that does is when you're twitching your rod a lot on a topwater walking bait, it prevents the line from getting fouled up around one of the hooks of the lure that you're using. One thing I always ask myself when I'm choosing between mono and fluoro is, how deep is my lure gonna get? How deep do I want my lure to get? And if the answer is you want your lure to get kind of deep, then you want to use that fluoro because it does sink. It's gonna allow you to get to your depth that you want to get to. For example, deep diving crankbaits. If you were to tie one of those on mono, you would not get to the depth that you you want it to get to, because the mono floats and doesn't sink that well. I think I've got enough for us to buy this stuff, get back to the fishing man cave, spool up some reels, or maybe just talk about specifically how I'm gonna use each one of these lines. All right guys, just made it back to the man cave. Got my pile of line down here. As you can see, got everything that we bought. Check these three guys out right here, guys. These are brand new rod and reel combos that I have custom picked for the demonstration of this video. They're going to demonstrate how the different types of lines apply in each different situation. Guys, congratulations. If you're still watching right now, you're gonna have a chance to win my first giveaway of 2019. Shh, don't tell anybody, don't do anything right now. Stop, don't do anything, okay? Because I'm gonna have to explain to you how you win the giveaway, and I'm also gonna have to show you what you're going to be trying to win. But you're gonna have to watch a little bit longer, make it through these little tips I'm about to give you real quick, and at the end of the video I'm gonna tell you exactly what you can win and how to win it, so stay tuned. And guys, as I'm going through these combos and the line that I use and the poundage that I use, remember what I said earlier. It's all up to a matter of opinion, and at the end of the day, what matters is what makes you feel comfortable. So yeah, this is just all my personal preferences. I'm not saying you guys should go out and do this exact same thing. Just saying this is what I do. So take what I do and kind of apply it to what you do, and there's a nice little marriage in there. So these first two combos, I'm gonna show you guys how I would rig up two fluorocarbon combos. So for 15-pound fluorocarbon, I'm going to use this most of the time when it comes to a Texas rig. And I fish a lot of Texas rig plastics. So, and once again, you could go down to 12, 10 pounds with this, or up to 17, 20 pound if you need to. I find that 15 pound is right in that middle ground. It allows me enough power, strength, and durability, but it's also a little bit lighter than some of those heavier lines, so I still have that sensitivity that I want. I'm going to fish that 15-pound fluorocarbon on a 7'3" medium heavy fast action rod, and with the reel really doesn't matter. It's whatever you want. It's just, I think this is a 6.8 to 1 gear ratio. Actually, it's a 7.5 to 1, so it's pretty fast. But you know, with a Texas rig, you can really use any kind of reel on a Texas rig that you want to. And boom, there we are, spooled up with some 15-pound fluorocarbon. Like I said, this is going to be my Texas rig setup. So there we go. Got my little 3/16 ounce tungsten bullet weight, a little 3/0 extra wide gap hook, and that's going to be my Texas rig setup most of the time. Now it's going to fluctuate, like I said. I mean, you know, if you start throwing a really big soft plastic, you may want to change everything about that combo. But just for me, for an all-around Texas rig combo, that's my go-to right there. You can use a straight shank worm hook instead of an extra wide gap hook. Obviously your weight size can go up and down, whatever you want. But that's going to be my setup most of the time. Moving on to the 20-pound fluorocarbon. And this is where things start to get a little hairy, because the setup that I'm going to put this on and the lure that I'm going to be using on this setup quite a bit is going to be something very new to me. And so something that I'm not really confident with, but by golly, we're going to make it work. Going to be putting that really heavy line on this big daddy right here. You guys might remember from the video that I did on this. This is that really big Super Duty, the 300. I mean, this is a huge reel. Maybe you can't tell from this video. This rod is also giant. I'm like hitting the roof in my man cave because it's so big. It's a 711 rod, and this reel is made for a lot of line. Good God, we finally got it spooled up. I should have showed you guys how long that took to spool that up, but it's got such a big wide spool on it. It holds a lot of line. But as you guys can see, what I have on there right this second is a Mondo crankbait, and that's one of the many things that you can use a big rod like this for. I think this is the Strike King 10 XD, so this is pretty much the biggest crankbait that you're going to see out there. I'm also going to use it for big swim baits like I showed you guys in the rod reel video. Check these bad boys out. I mean, just giant wake baits right here, or glide baits, I'm sorry. And but this time of year, I don't really think that's the juice yet, but anybody who's throwing big swim baits, please hit me in the comment section with some tips, because I have no idea. So this time of year, now that it's still cold, probably gonna be throwing the big crankbaits or the umbrella rigs, the Alabama rigs, but something that requires that heavy fluorocarbon line. There's only a few things out there that require that heavy of fluorocarbon line and that big of a setup. So that's what I'm gonna be using that for this year. Guys, for the mono, we're gonna keep this so simple right here. I'm gonna take my little 14-pound mono that I got, and I'm going to put that on what I really believe is like the most versatile combo out there. It's gonna be a 7'3", medium heavy, fast action rod once again. And if you guys notice, with me, a medium heavy, fast action rod is gonna be my most versatile rod. It's gonna be the one that I have the most rods of because it is so versatile. I've got that on a 6:8 gear ratio reel by LOJO, of course, because that's what I use. And this is going to be a lipless crankbait setup, okay? So with that 14-pound line, that's going to give me the stretch that I've talked about when using lipless crankbaits. I haven't really heard of other people besides myself using mono with lipless crankbaits, but ever since I made the switch and started doing it consistently, I have felt like my hookup ratio and my landed fish to bite ratio has gotten better since I switched from Fluro to mono. So if any of you guys out there have any experience with that, hit me in the comment section as usual. And there you go, guys. There she is, all spooled up with that 14-pound mono. There's my little lipless crank. Guys, red has been killing it lately for me. I don't know how you guys feel about, you know, lipless crankbait colors, but I was normally like a white, you know, white and chartreuse lipless crankbait guy, but I've been throwing the red lately and it has been just killing it. I'm not really sure why. Moving on to what you guys all came here for, and that's gonna be the braid. People love using braid, and I do too. Braid is widely considered, you know, one of the favorite fishing lines out there. And I don't really know why. I guess maybe because it makes a cool sound when you hook into a fish and it squeals and, you know, the braid's like grinding as you pull the fish in. So I'm going to take this beautiful 7'3.5" medium heavy fast action rod with this 8.3:1 gear ratio reel. So anytime I hear 8.3:1 gear ratio, that's a really fast reel right there. So that's a top water reel or a flipping reel for me. But since this is a medium heavy rod, what that tells me is that's a top water rod. We'll get to the heavy rod in just a minute. So this is going to be a top water moving bait style setup. Probably a buzz bait, because that is my favorite top water lure. And that's one of those lures where you need to swing on a hook set. You need to drive that single hook into the mouth of that bass, and you do not want to lose that fish. That's where the braid comes in. And kaboom, there we go. I will say there's just something about a reel being spooled up with braid that just makes it look cooler. It's a proven fact. But so this is a buzz bait that I got on here, guys, and this is going to be probably the main lure that I have tied onto a rig like this with a really fast gear ratio reel, medium heavy, fast action rod. You guys know the deal. That's kind of how I prefer to fish a buzz bait. But we did the 30-pound braid on this. Remember, we got 50-pound and 30-pound. Well, 30-pound is more in line with a moving bait like this. Now it all depends, like I've said a million times in this video, it all depends on where you are you fishing it, what kind of, you know, stuff is around you, what kind of cover are you fishing. But most of the time, 30-pound braid is going to be plenty for that type of setup. Which brings us to the next situation where 50-pound braid is going to have to be what you use, because you have to. You're not going to be able to get away with anything less than that. So now we have stepped up to a 7'4" heavy rod fast action with a big Super Duty reel on here, 8.3:1 gear ratio. So kind of like the last one, it's a really fast gear ratio, but now we're not thinking about top water anymore. But now we're not thinking about a buzz bait anymore. Now we're thinking more of like a frog fishing, or flipping more specifically. And one more time, kaboom, there we go, the 50-pound braid on that Super Duty reel. And the reason we're gonna have 50-pound braid is because of this right here. That right there is about a 1 ounce pegged tungsten weight with a little flipping hook. So this is going to be a flipping setup all day. Now I could tie a frog on there if I really wanted to, but I could also throw a frog on that last setup, the medium heavy setup with the 30-pound braid. So that's gonna be a flipping setup. So I hope I didn't like overcomplicate things too much. You know, I kind of answered the question of what line I use the most. I really didn't answer the question, but my answer would be it all depends on what time of year, where you are in the country, what does the water look like where you're fishing, and then finally, what are you fishing? So all of these lines have a place in bass fishing. They all have a role to play, and at any given time, I will have all three, you know, setups in my truck at one time, especially like the springtime or fall, where I could throw anything in a day, then I'm gonna have all three of those setups near me at all times. but I'd really like to hear from you guys because that's just what drives me. You know, I didn't mean for this video to turn into like such a heavy vlog, but I'm sick as heck. You know, it's cold outside. I'm not gonna go out and fish all day when I'm sick because then I'm just never gonna get better. But hopefully tomorrow I get back on the fishing train and have some actual fishing content for you guys. But the moment you guys have all been waiting for, the giveaway. So I told you guys in a couple videos that I was going to start doing one giveaway a month for this entire year, and that is true. This is going to be giveaway number 1 of that. So we're going to start out kind of small on this first giveaway. We're not going to do anything too crazy, but what we're going to give away this first one is going to be the LOJO Mach 1 spinning combo. Now this thing is a nice little entry-level spinning combo. I think it's like a $100 combo. Maybe it's not even that much, but it's a really nice combo. As you can see, it's got the tags on there, baby. This thing is brand new, never been touched, never been used by anybody, and I cannot wait to give this thing away to one of you guys. So this first giveaway, how you enter. Very simple. Now, like I said, you guys are gonna have to stay tuned because each giveaway is going to change how you can enter it. But this one specifically is going to be the easy way. This is going to be like this video, so you hit the thumbs up button, comment something below, specifically comment something about line. What's your favorite type of fishing line? What's your least favorite type of fishing line? Which one of these lines would you most like to use? Anything about fishing line in the comment section, that will count as one entry. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to my channel with the bell notification turned on. That's going to help you in further future giveaways, okay? Because like I said, I'm not gonna announce in the beginning of any video when it's a giveaway video. I'm just gonna randomly say, hey, this is a giveaway video, and then you're gonna have to watch and you're gonna have to follow the steps. So having that bell notification turned on, being subscribed to the channel, those are the best ways to stay up to date. For an extra entry, share this video on any social media. So I mean, literally share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, just share it anywhere on social media. That'll give you a second entry. The winner of this will be announced in my next upload. And guys, I do not announce the winner in the video. I announce it in the description. So you click show more underneath the video and it's gonna say right there, LOJO Mach 1 spinning combo giveaway winner. And if it's your name, contact me. You've got to get up with me, guys. So many giveaways have gone unclaimed because people don't get up with me. You got to get up with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, any of those things. Send me a message and I'll verify who you are. I'm not just going to give it to anybody. I'm going to make sure I verify that you are the person that won, and then I'll get the rod and reel combo out to you directly. Guys, had a lot of fun today filming this video. I always love doing stuff like this. I love answering questions that you guys have, and then, you know, which fishing line do I use the most was probably one of the #1 asked questions of me. So if you guys want me to answer any other questions in future videos, make sure you drop them in the comment section too. I will read every single comment and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. Guys, I'm getting out of here. On to the next fishing adventure. Fist bump, I'm out.